Buff Nation, what is up? Welcome on in to the Sko Show right here on Mile High Sports. Aniello, Piro, Chase Howell, Danny Bailey doing his thing behind the glass as well. Talking all things Colorado Buffalo as well. We've talked about offensive projections. We've talked about transfer portal news. Now let's talk a little bit about the defense, which in my opinion was arguably the strong suit of the Colorado Buffaloes last year. But today's episode is brought to you, as always, by our friends over at Peckish. Be sure to check them out. 2 locations across Colorado, one up in Boulder on the Hill, and here in the Denver metro area off of I-25 and Bellevue. Top-tier chicken wings, top-tier pizza. But Chase, the defense, buddy.
The defense, I'm excited about the defense. You bring back a defensive coordinator in Robert Livingston that I think was very impressive during his debut, calling plays. I think you got a little bit more continuity here. I think you got some great depth on the defensive line, the edge rushers. I think you have a couple of really good players in the secondary that we honestly don't know too much about, but I think there's some guys that you can definitely rely on in the secondary. And then they bring in a couple of transfer linebackers that you can be excited about. So this is a defense that I can't wait to see how they perform in 2025. I think they will be the strong suit of the team again. And we talked about on the offensive side of the ball how they might prioritize running a little bit more, especially with a running quarterback in Caden Salter. I think if you are able to control a little bit more clock and you have a defense like the defense that I expect them to have next year, I think you find a way to win football games in a much different way than you have over the past 2 years, and maybe even a more reliable way to win some football games. So I'm excited about what they have on defense.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Shall we start with the defensive line then?
Always.
Let's do
always. It's all about the hog mollies.
Absolutely. And the big guy that was not a member of the Buffs last year was actually playing for Alabama. The Buffs are getting Alabama boys at this point in time. That's the Coach Prime effect. Jaheim Otis. We'll make sure that Danny Bailey puts a picture of this guy up on the screen because I think he could like eat you and I. Like I mean, like the dude is an absolute wall, a fortress of a player in Jaheim Otis. He was one of the first big dominoes to fall for Colorado in the offseason, but he's going to slot in very nicely on this defensive line.
Yeah, you got to replace a good player in Chidozie Nwankwo, and they go out and get Jaheim Otis, 330 or 340, whatever he will end up weighing in at. All 330 pounds of him in the middle of your defensive line. I think he's a perfect guy to come in and fill Chidozie Nwankwo's spot. Obviously, 2 completely different type of players, but this dude can move some dudes on the opposing offensive line. So excited about him. But I think this whole defensive line, it has some serious depth now. I think they can go about six guys deep. Obviously, you know that they're going to be well coached with Coach Delu and Coach Sapp. Amari McNeil, I think we got to talk about him because he's also going to start on the defensive line, and he really came on in the second half of the year in 2024. And I think he can end up being maybe even a day 1 draft pick, but I think he can be a day 2 draft pick with just his explosiveness that he showed late in the year and his ability to get into the opposing team's backfield. So I'll go ahead and put Jaheim Otis, Amari McNeil as the starters, but you got a lot of depth here. And Quinn Barnes, who we saw a lot of this past year, he's going to play a lot. Gabriel Lightfoot, who they got from Fresno State, I think is going to be a good player for them. That they can go probably 6 or 7 deep, especially if they keep on adding defensive linemen in the transfer portal. So defensive line, I don't know if you could say this about a CU team. Maybe it has to go way back into the early 2000s, the 1990s, but defensive line might be the strong suit of this entire football team.
Yeah, and it starts in the trenches because the one common denominator, college football, pro football, whatever it is, if you want to disrupt opposing teams' offenses, you need to get pressure. And that's where it's going to start for sure on the defensive line. You talked about it, Gabriel Lightfoot, Jaheim Otis, Tavion Coleman, Amari McNeil, a lot of talent for CU up there in the trenches, as well as the edge rusher position.
The edges, yeah. Another position where I think they return some really high caliber talent. I went ahead and put Arden Walker and Keaton Wade as the starters. I think they might need to go out and find a BJ Green type of player, somebody that is strong and big and can hold the edge. I think what they have at edge right now is a lot of guys that can rush the passer, but you also need some guys that can stop the run at the edge position as well. But Arden Walker, we've seen enough over this past season that he is a high caliber power 4. edge rusher Keaton Wade really performed in the few games that he played in. Sammy Okunlola, we saw a lot of flashes of him over this past year.
Yep.
So they have some legitimate pass rushers there. I think we go ahead and mention Taj McCoy, who we've seen over the past 2 years
Young guy.
perform as well. So they got some dudes here. I think they might need to go add one more, just somebody that can set the edge for you in the run game, somebody to play on first down. But the other one I want to bring up is London Merritt, the IMG Academy kid. I think he's a guy that can come in here and play as a true freshman. So excited about edge. I think they might need to add one more, but they got plenty of depth here, and I think they'll be able to rotate them nicely.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree. Moving it along here to the linebacking position, they're going to have to replace some guys, lost some talent, whether it was via the portal to the NFL draft, whatever it might be, but still set up for success, I would say, at linebacker.
Yeah, Nakai Hill-Green, Levante Bentley, two guys that really performed well in 2024, two guys that are going to be difficult to replace, but they go into the transfer portal. They get Reginald Hughes from Jacksonville State, who's been highly productive throughout his college career. And then recently they get Martavius French from UTSA. So I think those are the two guys that I expect to start at linebacker, two guys that have been productive at the college football level already. In group of five, but two guys that I think that they have really coveted in the transfer portal. Jalen Wester, I think, deserves an honorable mention here because he came in quite a few games and showed some flashes, and I thought he could be a starter for this team. The younger brother of LeJohntay Wester. I think he also offers kind of a different dynamic for you at the linebacker position, where he's more of a speed guy that can get side to side, whereas it seems like Reginald Hughes, Martavius French are bigger guys that are going to be able to plug the holes for you. So I think we'll see a lot of those three guys and probably a three-man rotation at the linebacker position.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I mean, that's the thing, is a lot of versatility. You talk about the different types of players that they're going to have on the line at the edge position as well. Guys that can plug those holes, as you mentioned, but also guys that can hit those swim moves and, do what they got to do to try to disrupt the quarterback as well. So I think that's where you like the versatility. And as we mentioned, still a work in progress for CU when it comes to rounding out this roster on the trend, or in the trenches, rather, I should say. And of course, at the linebacker position. Let's move over to cornerback, where the Buffs are going to have to figure out how to replace Travis Hunter. And there is no easy way to do that, right? Whether it was on offense or defense, but we know what Travis Hunter was able to do at cornerback, essentially playing offense while also playing defense. But they've got a guy in DJ McKinney. Shout out to him, friend of the program here at Mile High Sports. He's going to slot in as well. I think he's a phenomenal player. And they've got a couple other guys as well that could make an impact right away. And, we'll see what happens in the portal.
DJ McKinney, he might have had one of the hardest jobs in all college football this past year. When you have Travis Hunter opposite of you, you're going to see the ball a lot. They're going to be the quarterback's going to be looking your way because he's not looking Travis Hunter's way. And I thought DJ McKinney performed very admirably. I think we saw him get better as the season went on. He was playing well, didn't have any interceptions, and then late in the year, caught a few interceptions. So I'm excited about DJ McKinney. I think he can be a day one, day two type of draft pick. I think they found a great talent in him. And I think on the other side, Colton Hood, this dude, he came in, and I think he probably wanted to play a little bit more than what he ended up getting. But every time that he was on the field, it seemed like he made plays. He was dynamic in the return game as well. Caught an interception, almost took it to the house. So, I think they got two corners that are going to impress us this year. They might not be Travis Hunter type caliber, but I feel very comfortable about DJ McKinney and Colton Hood.
I think that's the word. You use the right word, comfortable. Right? Like, you don't have a lot of anxiety around what Colorado might be without Travis Hunter, because you feel confident in the talent that they have and have had, even when Travis was there. And to your point, a guy like DJ is going to benefit significantly from the experience of kind of playing that Riley Moss type of role, to kind of put it in Broncos perspective, right? When you've got Patrick Surtain on one side of the field, who's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year, or if he hasn't already by the time you're watching this, Riley Moss is getting targeted play after play after play after play. And much like Travis Hunter, DJ McKinney is going to be much better because of that. But real quick, let me tell you about our friends over at Peckish here real quick, guys, before we talk about that safety position. You heard me talk about it in the beginning of the show. It is my personal favorite spot to get chicken wings and pizza in Colorado. Two locations, one up in Boulder on the Hill, and their brand new location off of I-25 and Bellevue. So if you're a Buff fan or a Buff graduate living in the Denver Metro, check them out, I-25 and Bellevue. And if you're going up to a game next year, you're going up to check out the campus, whatever it might be, check out their original location up there on the Hill. But what about safeties, Chase?
Safety, yeah. So the game of football has changed because I guess you used to just talk about like two cornerbacks, two safeties. You have to talk about the nickel position.
Yep.
So they might have three safeties on the field. You might call it three corners on the field. Whatever it is, they're going to have a nickel. It sounds like Preston Hodge might be able to come back. He has another year due to playing JUCO football. So thank you, Diego Pavia, as I mentioned in a previous episode. But thank you, Diego Pavia. It sounds like Preston Hodge has the ability to come back. I think he's an NFL draft pick. I think he showed enough this past year that he could get drafted if he so chooses to do so. But as of the recording of this, he has not said what he plans to do. So you could bring back a very experienced player, Preston Hodge, and slot him right there in nickel. If he doesn't come back, I like what they got in the transfer portal in Makari Vickers out of Oklahoma, a guy that has great length. You can move him all around the secondary. So I think you kind of slot him into nickel. 4-star recruit coming out of high school. I think he was somewhere in the top
Sophomore too.
250. Yeah, he has plenty of eligibility left. A younger kid, but I think we'd end up seeing him at nickel. We saw a lot of Carter Stoutmeyer at nickel when Preston Hodge went out with an injury, but I think they're going to end up moving Carter Stoutmeyer back to safety. I thought when he came in and filled in for Shiloh Sanders, that's when he was most impressive on the field. So I expect him to kind of be that free safety, roaming role, rover role, whatever you want to call it, but a ball hawk. And I think when he came in, filled in for Shiloh when Shiloh was hurt, I think he was very impressive. I feel comfortable about Carter Stoutmeyer. And then the last safety to talk about, and we talked about him in our transfer portal video, but Tafik Bayard, I think he's kind of your strong safety. He's the one that will end up playing in the box, can really tackle. Uh, I think you can go ahead and comp him to Cam Silman Craig because he can make plays, get in the backfield. He had 2 sacks this past year. He can get you tackles for loss, but he's a guy that they're going to rely on at the safety position.
Yeah, without a doubt, it is going to be exciting. Let us know in the comment section, folks. What are you most excited about with this defense? How do you think Robert Livingston and company are going to adjust this defense moving into his second year with Colorado, but Coach Prime's third year as head coach? But make sure to hit the like button, smash the subscribe button on your way out. That way, you guys never, ever miss an episode of the Sko Show right here on Mile High Sports. Also, make sure to check out our friends over at Peckish at their 2 locations across Colorado. Any closing thoughts?
No, well, when we talked about secondary, I should mention that I think that they have some depth here. I think Isaiah Harge is a guy that can play slot for you, or play nickel corner for you, and maybe be able to play on the outside as well. We saw Savion Riley as an interesting player because he came in for Cam Silman Craig first game of the year against North Dakota State and performed admirably. And then we didn't really see him for the rest of the year. So I think they have a guy in Savion Riley that could definitely start at the safety position. RJ Johnson, an Arkansas transfer that they got last year, returns as well. So they got some depth in this secondary. So I think they got depth all across the defensive side of the ball. And I think that's what excites me the most about this defense.
I would agree. Still plenty of time in transfer portal season, plenty of time before the next season starts, but an early look at what Colorado's defense may look like when they hit the ground running next season. But for Chase Howell, I'm Aniello Piro. Make sure to subscribe and like the video. We'll talk to you guys soon. Sko Buffs.
Let's go, Buffs.